What I have gotten to see is somebody today that's really not making safe choices. Maybe they allowed people and things into their life that have created a big mess. I've been able to see those people grow up, change, have an opportunity to heal, and go on to live amazing, dynamic lives. Being able to look at someone today and see where they could go is the thing that keeps me able to work with people, even when I've seen the worst things that have been done to children.
Right.
And working with those families, it's like, you know what? This is not all that you can be. Keep moving forward. Keep taking the classes, doing the things that you need to do.
Well, hello, everyone, once again to the Audacious Faith Podcast, episode 114. We're coming to you from La Palma, California, and we're at Faith Fellowship. Now, for those of you who follow the podcast, you may say to yourself, I think I've seen this place before. And that's because just a little over a year ago, we were actually having a interview, a great one, by the way. You need to go back and see it, with the daughter of who we're having as our guest today. But I'm excited because this is going to be a whole new subject, whole new great things to talk about. And so we are here with Jennifer Galvan, and she is, let's see, lots of things I could say about you. She does social work for many years. She supervises actually an agency that does that. And you have a lot of years of experience doing that, right? Also a pastor's wife. Today we're going to talk about the fact that she's an author as well. And we're going to find out a little bit about those books. So Jennifer, thanks so much for joining us and taking the time to be on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's start right in. Some people that are watching this are familiar with you, but there may be people out there that I'm sure that are not. That's the goal, hopefully, to get it out there. So give us a little background about you, maybe a little bit of brief upbringing and how you came to faith.
Sure. I am Jennifer Galvan. I was born in a small town in Tennessee, and I lived all of my childhood there. Grew up with an amazing Christian family. My mom was a teacher. My dad is still a banker. And I came to faith. I came to know the Lord as my personal Savior when I was 10 years old, thanks to a Sunday school teacher who really just kind of explained that to me.
Awesome. So you had been in church from the crib for the most part.
Absolutely.
So what do you think at 10 years old kind of made that click? Is it just God, or was there maybe the way the Sunday school teacher approached it?
She did. She really just kind of helped me to understand that although my family, my parents, my grandparents were Christians, although we lived in a town where a lot of us were Christians, it really had to be a personal decision to determine if Christ was going to be part of my life. And so that really kind of opened the door for me to understand.
Awesome. So at 10 years old, you make this understanding. It kind of catches in. Was there a point, were you pretty much committed from that point on, or was there another point? Sometimes people say, well, later on, though, I really understood even a little bit more. Did that happen? Or?
Yes. When I went away to university, I went to the University of Tennessee at Martin, and there I really my faith became my own. I wasn't going to church because my mother and father did, because my friends did. I really had to determine if Christ was going to continue to be part of my life. And so that was a real turning point in my life. I got involved with the Baptist Student Union and really became active in that. I got to go on several missions trips with the Baptist Student Union and really just kind of grew into my faith on my own.
What I love about that, I know, obviously you have children yourself, and you have been a lot involved with young people through the years in ministry and Christian schools. You've had many students living in your home as well. So that experience for you, I'm wondering, has that carried in with you on how you deal with them, in the fact that it's not necessarily a regulated faith, it's something that they have to discover?
Yes. Especially I'll speak mostly with my own children, my biological children. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of pressures put on pastors' kids.
Yes.
And it was very important to me from very early on that those expectations weren't part of my children's lives. They were children just like every other kid that was running around the church. And so the expectation that they got to come to Christ on their own terms, in their own time, when God really just kind of spoke to them, was very important to us.
Right. Not something you could do for them, right?
Correct.
Well, let's talk about being an author now. Because you have a book that's coming out. You also have another one that you're planning to bring out. And we were talking a little bit before we even started that there's plans for more in the future. being an author is great to be able to get that out there and communicate. So when did that first become something you wanted to do?
I have always been a writer. I have a lot of stories just kind of rattling around in my head, and I used to write them down when I was a child. I put together my first, what you would call, full-length book. It was about 200 pages when I was a teenager, very much the young love, first kiss, finding somebody, that you want to spend time with, that kind of a genre.
Okay.
I kept writing all through college, but then I graduated from college, and at 22, I moved out here to California. At 24, I got married. At 26 and 28, I had babies. And then at 29, my husband became the senior pastor of the first church that we ran. So then in my 30s and 40s, I was raising babies.
Yeah.
And so now here I am in my 50s, and really with an opportunity to share what God has put on my heart in kind of written word, put pen to paper and get that out into the world.
So that's great in the sense that it's always been in there. But you finally decided to pull the trigger. I mean, we meet a lot of people that they have these dreams and things that God has maybe put in their heart. But because of turns, like you talked about, all good. I mean, things, raising kids, doing the different things you're doing. Obviously, I'm sure you wouldn't trade that. But some people say, well, that was something I was going to do a long time ago.
This is a very different format because most of the things that I've written, all of the things that I've written except for Citrus Sisterhood has been just for my own benefit to read and kind of put down on paper.
Yeah.
This one, I really feel like God has called me to share this specific book with women.
Mm-hmm. Well, explain the title, Citrus Sisterhood. So what is that exactly? Where did that come from?
In my backyard, I have an orange tree.
Okay.
And I was out in the garden one day and just working, and I could smell those orange blossoms just kind of fill the air.
Yeah.
And I looked at one of the oranges that was there and really kind of thought about all of the parts of an orange. And so Citrus Sisterhood kind of blossomed from there.
Okay.
It is looking at the 5 seasons of a woman's life and kind of relating that to an orange.
Got it. Now, I'm curious. I don't know how much you're willing to share and how much you want people to just get the book. You're talking about 5 seasons of a woman's life. Probably would be something good for all of us to know. You want to share any of that? Like what some of those seasons might be?
So I did not label this book from chronological age. I really just kind of put seasons of a person's life because people may decide, hey, I'm in a different season of life than my chronological age shows.
Right.
So it starts off with kind of those that are newly adulting. That chapter is called Zest. If you think about an orange, anybody who's a baker, that zest of an orange, you can put in there zest of a lemon, really kind of flavors what you're baking. So the Zest is the first chapter that's for newly adulting.
Okay.
And then we move on to Peel. The peel of an orange is really just kind of thinking about peeling back those layers. As you get further into your adult journey, there's a lot of things to peel back. You may have found somebody that God has designed you to be with. You may have started having children, a career, making those big purchases. Those are a lot of layers to peel back.
Yeah.
Then that kind of mid-season of life, that one is called Zest. I'm sorry, not Zest, Pulp.
Okay.
That's really the kind of meat of your life. There's a lot going on in that mid-season of your life.
Yeah.
And then we move on to the juice. After you get through all of that pulp, you have that smooth sailing of the juice of an orange. And then it ends, the final season of life is those seeds that are inside of an orange that are really just kind of to provide that wisdom to future generations.
That to me sounds really good. I will tell you that makes perfect sense. And this all came from noticing the orange trees in your backyard.
It absolutely did.
Which I'm glad I asked you that question because I'm thinking citrus, sister. I don't get that. So that's what I wanted to know, and I love that. This sounds to me like a future conference as well. I don't know if you've thought about that.
I have not. I'm just getting through the process of publishing it. So
the book. Well, often good books then branch into something like a conference or some type of event. So that's what comes to my mind now. I want to throw this at you. I'm going to put you on the spot on a couple things here. Don't worry. I mean, I don't think you're going to get in trouble for this. But there is a huge difference between women and men, for instance. So you're talking about adulting, which was the first step that you mentioned there. And I'm thinking, I don't know if this is true for women, so I'm going to ask you. Okay. I know men who are in their 50s that still are having trouble learning how to adult. They're still in stage one. Do women do that too? Or
Absolutely, okay. Yes. You may very early in your life have been put in situations where you needed to be the adult and be very responsible. And so that young woman who really is just kind of turning the corner of 18 to 20-ish range may say, you know what, I've been doing this for a long time. I find myself in one of those later seasons. Or you may have somebody who is experiencing a life-threatening illness who at very young may say, I feel like I'm in that final season of my life. God may not keep me here very much longer. And so that's why I kind of left it wide enough open.
Now, here's another question, and this might combine with your experience in social work as well when we put this all together, because I don't think that God wastes anything. I think he takes all the different pieces, and it probably was part of what he gave you to write in this book as well. What about, and this is the scenario I'm thinking about, what about that woman that you're talking about that had to be an adult at a young age? Is there a resentment there sometimes? Is there also maybe a point where they almost feel cut free, set free, and then they kind of revert, even sow some oats that they couldn't sow? Or
I think that absolutely happens. When you are called upon to stand up and be the adult in your family early on in life, it absolutely puts a lot on your shoulders. This is something that happened a bit in my life. My mother was diagnosed with cancer, and she passed away when she was 50 and I was 22. So I was standing at that first stage of my adult life and was really kind of moved into adulthood very, very quickly. Part of the reason that Citrus Sisterhood is coming to light now, my daughter is 22 and I'm 50. And so really we're standing where my mom and I stood so many years ago.
Yeah. So almost like a deja vu if they mention those things, right? So how much of this, besides the fact that you like to write, you know how the Bible talks a lot about women, especially as they start getting old. By the way, I wouldn't guess you're in your 50s, except for the fact that I know that. I think most people looking, if you didn't say that, would not think that. But you've mentioned now, as we get into later stages, that to pass on that seed process, is that what you refer to it as well? Yes. The seed process. Passing that on to others, which of course only comes through experience and wisdom. How important do you think that really is? And doesn't that seem to be missing for a lot of girls today?
It does. I think God calls women, specifically in his word, to mentor and pass on to younger women what we have learned. And so everybody has someone in their life that speaks into their life. When I lost my mom, I had family members, an aunt specifically, who really kind of stepped in. My mom didn't get to see me graduate college or get married or have babies. And so those things that I was really needing some wisdom, other women stepped into my life and played that role. And so, I think it is vital that women who have experienced things be able to share that with younger generations in a way that younger women are able to hear and understand and take in.
Now, you're mentioning that, and that was vital for you. I'm sure that in your line of work and experience, you've also seen a lot of cases where no one seems to step into that void. What's the huge difference that you see happen when that stopped there?
Well, I think without a mentor or a person in your life who can stand in and kind of help guide, then people are left to their own, try to figure it out. And we know that in our society, when you are left to figure things out on your own, oftentimes things go astray very quickly. And so women are trying to just make something happen and don't really have the knowledge of where it comes from. And those things can oftentimes go badly.
Right. So you're looking at, for example, the Bible tells us about discipleship, which I heard defined many years ago as a disciple of someone who imitates their teacher. Obviously, we're supposed to be imitating Christ, but then there has to be those examples that we find in other people where, just like Paul says in the Bible, follow me as I'm following after Christ. That's a huge responsibility that we have. Have you been able to balance at times in your life where you're still, even though we get older, I think we still need people to follow, yet at the same time be leading and discipling others? So there's kind of like you're being trained by somebody. So what I'm saying is, and especially as a pastor's wife, and pastors, people in ministry, can become more isolated. There's fewer people that they can trust. So how do you get the iron sharpening iron type of situation?
Well, since I really feel like I'm standing in that middle section of life, I have hopefully many years ahead of me, and then I have the wisdom of the life that I've lived.
Yeah.
Being able to listen to those who have come before me and really, really hear what they have to say. And for a lot of times, it means I need to slow down. In the busyness of the day, in the busyness of being at church, slowing myself down and sitting with the woman and hearing what she has to say. And then also I may need to speed up to catch up to younger women who are moving at a very different pace than I am. So having the ability, and all women, some of our newly adulting, very young, just stepping out into that, arena of adulthood, they have younger sisters that are watching them and listening to what's going on in their world. So I think that everybody has someone that they can listen to and gain from, and then they can pour into the lives of someone younger.
Awesome. So tell me about maybe how something comes to mind. Is there, besides people that have done this for you, you don't have to name names or anything, but are there certain examples that come to mind that have just been really satisfying to be able to just be a part of what God's doing in somebody's life and seeing them really grow as a result of it?
Like I said earlier, I've gotten an opportunity to go on several mission trips, and the longest, most intense mission trip I went with a team to South Africa.
Okay.
And I was part of a team where there were women on that team who were older than me and women who were much younger than me.
Yeah.
And so being part of that team where you got to see one of the ladies on our team, she was getting married 2 weeks after we got back from South Africa. So she was just starting her adult life.
Yeah.
And then there was another lady on our team that was moving into a different phase of her life when we got back. And so being able to be part of everybody coming from their own place in life to join together, really serve God's kingdom, was a powerful kind of view as we were somewhere across the world and ministering to women and young people who we had seen who were in, again, different seasons of their own life. So that was a powerful one to just kind of witness. Yeah.
So the different seasons of life, as you're mentioning here, they all have their importance, right? They have their value. I know that sometimes people make the mistake of thinking that earlier stages, possibly, well, that's just for my training for what's for the future, but they're important for the moment, right? The relationships you're having, the experiences you're having. Yet at the same time, have you seen that every experience that you've had, the easy ones, the great ones, the challenging ones, would you trade them? Or do you realize that, hey, God has put them all there as a part of who I am now to do what I'm doing now?
I definitely can see that God has used every experience in my life to build me into the woman I am now. I also think that what you said is absolutely accurate. People discredit young women's experiences.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I could navigate young adulthood right now. There's so much that young people are called upon to navigate, what our society says young people should be doing, what the expectations are, beauty standards, all of those things for young women are so challenging, and they're trying to navigate through them.
I want to throw that out to you since we went there and you took it there. The influence of social media, the cell phones, all the things. So when you and I were in the same generation, so when we were back as adolescents, as children. We wondered what others were thinking about us and what others were doing, but we couldn't see it, right? It was just all our imagination. Now the things that even young children under 10 are even thinking about and dealing with, it's a whole new world, right? How have you seen in ministry and in professional work the effects of this?
I think I see it most clearly in mental health that gets affected. Because just like you said, we couldn't see what other people thought of us. They had to come up to our face and say it for us to know it. And now where people can hide behind a computer screen and say anything that they want, and our society right now feels like everything that you have to say should be put out for public view. And then the person sitting at home who's read that comment, who's seen that text that has come through, is left to deal with it with very little resources.
Yeah. And you mentioned women, and I'm sure young girls as well, that have these certain standards that they think that they have to live up to, and it's very hard to do so. We live in a world where there's filters and everybody's made to look better. We can even do AI photos now. I love to do that myself. And make... And I was sharing with our producer here on the way down here, because I had put some photos that were slightly altered with AI last night. And I was saying, well, only the people that know me well realize those aren't real pictures. Right. The people that don't think those are the pictures because it looks close enough. Right. Okay. So how much do you think that's really happening today, where these expectations that young women are putting on themselves are unrealistic, and they're just being the mental health that's happening because of this, and it's not even a real world?
I think the expectation in our society today is that you present your best picture. You take 25 pictures and only the best one's going to go. Yeah. And you layer it with filters, and so that your life looks like it is thriving every minute of every day.
Yeah.
And the reality becomes that the things that we don't want shown, we don't really have a place to put them, because we've only shown society our very best and brightest. And so when someone is struggling, they don't know where to go for help because everyone else looks like they're doing so well.
Exactly. And I think a main point as you bring this up is, let's take Facebook, for example. Nobody likes a whiner on Facebook that they're putting out there every day. Oh, this happened to me today, and this happened to me. And we're so used to not seeing that. It's almost like, why are you so negative? Why are you putting all that out there? I've even been told in the past, don't put that stuff on there. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to read that. So maybe you're right. I mean, we get to the point where everybody only wants to see the perfect. And so there seems to be no outlet when life isn't perfect. And let's face it, there are many days that are far from perfect, and people are carrying things, and it hurts. All right. So yeah, we're getting into some stuff here. I think that I'm sure people relate a little bit out there. Okay. So going back to the seasons of life in the Citrus book, the Citrus Sisterhood. Yes, that's a mouthful.
It is.
Get that out there. What is there a particular season in that tends to be the most challenging?
I can tell you, in writing it, the first season, Zest, was the most fun, because that is when you really get to kind of blossom into your own adult.
Right.
I think the final season of life is probably harder to write, first of all, because I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And there is some pain and some loss that comes with that. Somebody who's in that final season of their life, they may have already lost a loved one, a spouse, and they're navigating really big, challenging things. Finances may be a problem. Health may be. There may be something that's ongoing that is something that takes away from their ability to worship as they once did. So I think the first and the last seasons are definitely, they've been the most interesting to write.
Okay. The kind of the early and the late. And you're right, you're not there yet. But I'm sure you've seen many that have gone through that. Are there parts about that scare you?
Yes, looking into that final season of life right now where I stand is a bit unsure. I absolutely have a certainty that when I am taking my final breaths here on this earth, that I will be in heaven with our Heavenly Father. So I have no concerns about that.
Right.
But the unknown of what those final stages of my life look like is unsure. But I do think that after spending time with those that really are in their final season of life, I think that kind of passes away. Every step you get closer to the end of this life is, awaiting heaven, which is such a looking forward to kind of moment.
Absolutely. And I think we're in the same spot on this, because I've seen things too that scare me. But and I would agree. If somebody asked me, do you fear death? I would say absolutely not, because I know where I'm going. I'm a little uneasy about the possible process of getting there, though. And that's the unknown that we don't know. It could be quick, it could be instantly, or it could be what we've seen some people go through. Heaven, as you mentioned it as well, becomes more appealing as we get into that area, because when you deal with a young person, you probably have this with your kids, maybe a conversation. My son said, for example, I said to him once, when I hit a certain age, he goes, "Oh, you got another 50 years. And I said, "Oh, Jesus will come back before that." And his response was, "Well, I hope not." And my response to him was, "I used to feel like you too, but that changes." Is it because a lot of what you mentioned, losing people, possible illnesses, medical issues, all the things in heaven that not only are there, but are not there, that you don't go through anymore? That's kind of how we start to see it, right?
I think that absolutely is the lens that you get to view the world from as you have moved through all of those seasons of life, and you're standing at that end, closer to Jesus than you are closer to anything else.
Right. Now, you've mentioned you've seen people that have gone through it, and the apprehension that you would think would be there starts to disappear is a great point. What's the difference that you've seen in people's lives that have deep, solid faith versus those going through the same thing that either have a not as solid faith or no faith?
Like I shared, I lost my mom when I was 22 and she was 50. And so going through that was a very unique experience. And I got to watch people who knew and loved my mom grieve with a hope.
Yeah.
And then I got to watch people who knew my mom grieve without hope. Those that didn't know the Lord and didn't know for sure where they were going to stand at the end of their life. And that was such a profound, at 22 years old, I could very clearly see that I was in the category of grieving with the hope. It was devastating to lose my mom, but I knew someday we would be reunited in heaven, and that she was walking those streets of gold, completely healed. Cancer was no more a part of her life on the day that we lost her.
Right. Now, the way that she approached it, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of personal. But did you see that hope in her? And that kind of helped you to see that, right?
Yes. My mom was an amazing woman of faith. A lot of who I am is based on who she was and all that I was able to glean from her.
Yeah.
And yes, even at those final moments in the diagnosis, in the surgeries, in the chemotherapy, everything that went with it, she kept her eyes on Jesus.
Yeah. So that makes a huge difference when you see that peace. I know I've seen it in some people too. And even though you know it should be there, it's amazing to see it when the person actually is in those circumstances, and it's not just theory anymore, right? And you see it lived out in front of you. Here's another question that comes to mind, another thought that came to mind. I had this experience when my mom was gone, and maybe you did, where you go somewhere and you're gathered together as a family, and you realize they're not there, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I wish that she was here right now. I know the first time we went out to a restaurant that she had gone with, I felt guilty at first, until I realized She wouldn't want to be here right now. What she's singing is much better. So is there that aspect where I don't think if they go on to heaven and they're with Jesus, I personally believe Hebrews 12 says we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. I think they can still see us, although I think they got other things to do than to watch us all day. But is there that aspect, do you think, where, no, they don't wish they were still here. They're just waiting till we get there?
Right. I absolutely believe those have gone on before me will be present and thrilled when you and I make it to those pearly gates and get to be ushered into our heavenly home.
Right. They've really got it better than we do at this point. But of course, they had to go through their time. Okay. Let's move on to, you're going to be writing another book as well. Totally different title. I think I can figure out where it's going. 316.
316 is the title of the next book that will be out by the end of the year.
Now, why that one? I love that subject, but why that one?
So I was doing just a personal Bible study, and I was in John and came across John 3:16. And as I read it for the millionth time,
Sure.
I really thought, I wonder if the Gospels, the 3:16 of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, are similar to John 3:16.
Okay.
And so I went back and I read Matthew, Mark, and Luke 3:16. And spoiler alert, they are not at all like John 3:16. And so that really kind of launched my creative mind into thinking, what are the 3:16s of the Bible? And so that's what 3:16 is. It's going to be a look at every book of the Bible that has chapter 3, verse 16.
Which is almost all of them.
It's 49 of them.
Yeah, right. Okay. I will tell you, I have never thought about that ever. So it's definitely a novel idea.
God has gifted me with a creative mind, and so I want to use that for his glory.
And you've looked at them. I'm not going to have you spoil too much, but is there any similarities, or it's just kind of a novel thing to look at?
Well, I view the world through the lens of a woman. And what I found in reading the 3:16s of the Bible is so many of them speak to a woman. Genesis 3:16 is specifically speaking to the woman. That's the curse in the Garden of Eden. That's right, Genesis 3:16. Okay. And so as we go on, so many of them spoke to things that a woman can relate to or spoke directly to a woman. So this one will, again, be a journaling book for women.
You know, I'll stop you right there, because even if you didn't look at all the rest of the 3:16s, just that fact you just brought up, it all gets messed up in Genesis 3:16, and it all gets fixed in John 3:16. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it is.
That's, and you probably already thought of that, but it hit me as soon as you said that. That's pretty incredible. And I don't believe in coincidences when it comes to God and the way that he works things. So that's going to be literally looking at 49 different examples of 3:16. So we're talking 49 chapters in?
Yes. It's going to be a journal that looks at all of them. And then 3:16 will spin off into there'll be a series of them that will come out in 2025.
A series of them. Okay. Any preview on what the series, where it's going, or you know yet?
I'm working on them right now.
Gotcha. Okay. We're going to keep you in suspense, and you're going to have to look for that. I'm just curious, how are you publishing these? Are you going through self-publishing, or?
No, I have a publishing company. A lady who is here in my church. She and I are part of the prayer ministry, and we were in our prayer room one day just really talking, and I had said that God had gifted me this book, this Citrus Sisterhood book, and all of these ideas, and I was writing it, but I had never published anything, and so it would probably just sit. And she said, I have recently gone through a publishing class. I've just opened my own publishing company.
Nice. Okay.
And so Crossroads Publishers is who I'm using, and so she is a amazing woman of faith who edited and is now publishing Citrus Sisterhood.
That's great. Are you going to do the audio book too?
Yes, it will be out August 31st is what we're shooting for. Amazon and Kindle, you can either get a paperback or the ebook version of it.
You can do both. And what I love about audiobooks, because I tend to fall asleep when I try to read a physical book, even though I don't have a problem reading, but for some reason when I sit down to do that. But I love the I don't think audiobooks can replace the physical book sometimes because we gloss over it more. But I love the ability to listen to it in the car, to listen to it when taking a walk, or just kind of not having to be completely stationary, but being able to focus on that. So you're going to narrate it?
I'm not sure. The audio version isn't in the works yet. Right. The Kindle version and the paperback are really what the focus is to kind of get that.
That's always first. Yeah.
I don't know. I could narrate. It's something that I could see myself doing.
Well, just a little advice on a little input from me on that, because I haven't done that. But I will say that when I see an audiobook that I grab from an author, that I appreciate it much more when it's in the voice of the actual author. Okay. I personally do, because to me, that's their personality coming through. They wrote it. When it's someone else, it's just, to me, it's different. So I would say, if you can narrate it, then do it.
Something that is coming out along with Citrus Sisterhood is if people are interested in doing this as a group Bible study or even a women's retreat, there will be a Citrus Sisterhood Leaders Guide that you can also purchase that will really walk you through all of the steps of the chapters and has some additional content in there to be able to give to group studies.
Yeah, because it sounds like a great one. I think that it's something that's going to be very beneficial to people. That. So we're going to get that out there. And what's the release date?
We're shooting for August 31st.
Oh, we're close.
Yeah, we're right at the end, ready to go.
By the time a few of you listen to this, it'll already be out. Right? So that's good. And they get it through Amazon?
Amazon's your best way to go.
Awesome. Okay. So the question I was going to tie in is, in this particular season of your life, which we're in season 4 right now? Okay, season 4. With the writing, anything else? I mean, is this the vision that God's giving you? Is there more in contained with that? I think we keep dreaming until we're done.
Right. I want to be used by God. And I'm at a season of life where I have a bit more time. I'm not raising children. I'm well established in my career. Those kind of things are going well. I'm relatively healthy. And so God has given me an opportunity and has opened a door to be able to use my creative mind for His glory. And so that's what I want to focus on every day that He'll let me do it.
I love that. So for people that go through that and they finally get to that point, like you're saying, well, hey, I have a little more flexibility now. All these experiences I've done up to this point now make me ready for this and God's timing. Are you a procrastinator or you're the go-getter person?
I am type A go-getter. I am definitely that person.
Go-getter. So does it drive you crazy when you see those who are not? Because a lot of people are not. They talk a good game. They think about all these things they should do. And then they're in that hospital bed or that hospice care at the end of their life, regretting all the stuff that they never got to. Does that push you to not be like that?
I don't think it pushes me to be like that. I think it gives me a compassionate heart to listen to someone that says, I think I'm not going to be able to do what I had hoped to do, and listen to those kind of regrets and could have been moments, and really see how I could support somebody through recognizing those in their own life.
Yeah. Now, you've mentioned several times today about the importance of listening, which too many don't seem to be able to do. How is it important that people feel heard?
The thing that comes to mind is you don't have to have all the right answers. So many people, they are listening really just to answer.
Yeah.
And really just sitting with someone and saying, wow, I don't really know what to say here. But I appreciate that, you felt that you could bring this to the table. I want to be able to support you in whatever way works best for you.
Right.
I think not necessarily having to have the answers. In times of big grief and loss, you just need somebody that's willing to sit there right next to you and be present through the tears and the hurt and the anger and the, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I think that's so much more valuable than any sort of word that could be said in the moment. It's just being present.
Sometimes there are no words, right? A situation is the sense that you have no clue. And some of us were talking about this just recently, and I'm sure you've been put in this position many times, to be tempted to say, oh, I understand. But you don't. That's probably one of the worst things you can tell somebody if they think, no, you can't really understand. So how do you handle that? Do you say something like what you're just mentioning? I can't tell you that I understand how you're feeling, but I feel for you?
Yes. I don't know what to say right now. Mm-hmm. I'm just want to be here and be present with you, I think is a really powerful statement.
Yeah.
Because again, in our society, people aren't comfortable in the awkwardness. We like things to be pretty and shiny. Mm-hmm. And so when somebody is devastated and crying and hurt, and the tendency is to want to let them just kind of go and hide and be away and not share that with the rest. And so being present, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, isolation in that case doesn't necessarily
lead anywhere good.
Yeah, it doesn't. The person can just keep reclusing deep in death. I think there's that temptation. For example, somebody pulls over and asks you for directions. I don't know if you ever had this in life where somebody, oh yeah, you go this way, you go this way, you go this way. And they had really no idea, but they just felt they had to give an answer. And then they lead somebody a totally wrong. It's much more honest sometimes just to say, oh, I wish I could help you, but I just really don't know.
Right. I am never the person you want to ask for directions. Mm-hmm. God has not gifted me with a sense of direction at all. So I will be that person that says, you know what, I'm not going to be able to help you. Let me direct you to Jay. He will know how to get you there.
Right. Unfortunately, now we have GPSs, right? On our phones, which aren't always right, but a lot of times they are. So let's tie into this now. Putting everything together, all your experiences together, which you're now going to start putting in books as God continues to reveal. I'm curious how you're going to answer this one. No pressure. So you have the ministry capacity, and you have the occupational, professional capacity, social work. I know there's limitations on what you're allowed to bring from one into the other. Kind of yes, kind of no. I'm sure in your mind it's probably all ministry. So how do you balance it with being able to share the truth of God with not always being able to reveal completely that that's where it's coming from?
Right. Yes, I do work in a social work field where my agency is not a faith-based agency. Mm-hmm. And I've spent 27 years at my company, and really who I am as a person shines through. To be able to see Christ in me shines through. To be able to be a pastor's wife and serve in that capacity shines through. And whether I am here at the church scrubbing a toilet or working with a child or listening to somebody who just needs a friendly ear to talk, I have tried to live my life in a way that Christ can be seen in everything that I do.
So there's that, that it's not like a lot of people think, I used to think this too, in different things that God would have me doing. Well, I wear this hat here, and then there's this hat over here. And I think what God's revealed to me, and what you seem to be saying is, no, I want you to be the same wherever. You may not be preaching and quoting Bible passages, but as far as who you are, how you're dealing, how you're listening, how you're hearing people, how you're showing love, compassion, all of those things, it's the same. It's supposed to be the same. And every encounter, whether it's in church walls, outside church walls, wherever it is, all has that same value. They're all divine appointments, right? So you've seen this over and over again. what's the difference with, for example, what's more challenging to you, dealing with children possibly you've been dealing with, or parents that are struggling or maybe really off? What, or does it all kind of have its place?
I always think working with children is just such an amazing opportunity to pour into the life of a little one who is, gaining knowledge every single day.
Yeah.
Fixing broken adults is a harder task.
Yeah.
And so, pouring energy into making sure that this generation is safe and healthy and happy and growing up in ways that are safe, I think is really where I'd like to focus my attention, because it's really where God has given me 27 years of a career.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna put you on the spot on this one. Okay. It's just coming to my mind, so I hope you don't mind. How hard is it when you're dealing with some parents that are really messed up, really done some things? Obviously, you have a compassion for the children. They put the children through some things. I'm sure that there were probably reasons for that, probably things in their past that caused some of this, but still, it's not an excuse. How hard is it sometimes to show compassion, God's compassion, to people that have hurt other people?
I think being in this social work capacity for the last 27 years, of basically all of my adult career, what I have gotten to see is somebody today that's exactly what you were talking about, that's really not making safe choices, and maybe they have, allowed people and things into their life that have created a big mess. I've been able to see those people grow up, change, have an opportunity to heal, and go on to live amazing, dynamic lives. And so being able to look at someone today and see where they could go is the thing that keeps me able to work with people, even when they have, when I've seen the worst things that have been done to children,
right?
And working with those families, it's like, you know what, this is not all that you can be. And so keep moving forward, keep taking the classes, doing the things that you need to do.
I guess you could say, as you're answering like that, isn't that kind of how God looked at us, especially when we were, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. He saw who he knew when he created us before we did all those things, right? So it always is that possibility. There's that capability. God can change anybody, right? And we're not without hope. I love it. We're going to finish up. This has been a great interview. I do have one last question for you, a little open question. We don't know. You know how it is. God will have people see this at different times. A lot of the people that are going to see this are people that are either familiar with me or you or both. But there's also, in God's sovereignty, the people that are just going to be looking on YouTube or whatever platform, and they're going to stumble across this podcast. They may be searching, they may be struggling, they may be broken, like you just mentioned. And they don't know which way is up. They don't know what to do. They feel stuck. What is God laying on your heart right now, not knowing who they are, that possibly you would want them to know as far as how he can change that in their life?
Really, what I hope that as you come across this, that you really take away is that there is hope. There are people all around you that have the ability to hear what you have to say. Be strong, keep moving forward, don't give up. There is hope for tomorrow. We have a Savior who wants to come and wrap his arms around you and heal all of the hurt that has been done. And so look for the opportunity. Look for somebody who you're passing, somebody that you may have known your whole life, somebody who's just come back into your social media world, somebody who really has the ability to say, I hear you. I want to be present in your life and see these things through.
Amen. Now, Jennifer, let me ask you this. For those who are going to want more information about your book, besides looking it up on Amazon, maybe something you said today just resonates with them. They trust you based on the character and they want to reach out to you. What's the best way to do that?
jengalvan.com and galvanbooks.com. Those are two ways that you can connect, and we can really have some conversations.
Wonderful. And if they're in the area and they want to come to Faith Fellowship, that's where they'll find you as well.
Yes.
When's your service times?
Sunday morning at 10:30, and you are welcome to come on through. I will be happy to see you. I will be the one with the Southern accent. I'm not too hard to find.
Exactly. And so in La Palma, California, just look it up on the internet. If you're in the area, come on by, and you'll definitely benefit and have a great reception here. If you come, it's a great church. I definitely would recommend it. Great people. So this has been a great time. Again, I just appreciate you sharing with us today with some great questions and great feedback. And I'm looking forward to, I'm not a woman, but I think I want to see your book. I want to read that and recommend it to some others as well, as in addition to the ones that are going to be coming out, because you're going to keep, Lord willing, you're going to keep bringing them out in the next few years as well. So look for those. Look for those. Just look right under her name on Amazon, and you will find them very, very soon. And be sure to share it with others as well. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already, because that way you'll receive notifications, and you'll also be able to see not only upcoming episodes, but we have many episodes before that you want to connect with as well. And be sure to share this with a friend that you think might benefit from it. We're always blessed by the time we get to spend with you, and we are excited for the next time as well when we'll get together again. This has been the Audacious Faith Podcast. God bless you all.